I am very sorry about that. I accidentally kicked everyone off.
I see that.
Yeah. Oh, all right. I need to now admit everyone. I apologize. That was a disaster. Yeah. Sorry about that, Eliza.
Oh.
All right. And Megan, if you don't mind putting in the presentation mode. Thank you, Megan. All right. So it is 6:05. I think we should get started because we are these 4 hours that Francisco had mentioned. No, we hope to get in less than 2. So we want to make sure we make the best use of your time. So hello, and thank you for joining us this evening. Many of you know me, but for those who don't, I'm Sam Gold, and I'm the Executive Director of RiverCOG at the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments. And I'm joined today with Megan Juflis, who is our Senior Planner and the Project Manager on this, and Francisco Gomes, who's also the Project Manager from Fitzgerald and Halliday, our consultant. And we're also joined by a number of our Regional Planning Commission members. At this time, I'll turn over to Frank DeFelice, who is the Chair of the Regional Planning Committee, for a couple of words of welcome, and then we'll get started.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Sam. As Sam mentioned, my name's Frank DeFelice, and for the past 5 years, I've had the pleasure of serving as the chairperson for the Regional Planning Committee, also known as the RPC. Perhaps the most important responsibility of the RPC is the construction of the Plan of Conservation and Development for our 17-town region. And on behalf of the more than 24 RPC members that represent each of your towns, many of whom are in attendance tonight, I'd like to express our gratitude for your participation in what we believe is a most important workshop on visioning and branding for our region. You know, it's quite appropriate to ask, why would visioning and branding be important to a plan of conservation and development? The answer is really simple. At its core, the Plan of Conservation and Development is a visionary document. And so to create it, we must first ask, where is our region now? And more importantly, where do we want our region to be in the future? Answering these questions allows us to craft the goals that will be incorporated in this plan and enable us to make your vision a reality. As we go through tonight's exercise, I'd like you to ask yourself what you like about the region, what you would like it to be in 10 or 20 or 30 years into the future. And as you ponder those questions, consider the region's shortcomings as well, so that we can include goals in the plan that will mitigate these shortcomings. Now, closely related to visioning is our subject of branding. You see, our brand is our unique identity. It's what defines our region. Some might say it's the face of our region. In this regard, imagine tonight that you were in charge of marketing our region. What would you say? What is truly unique about our region? What things are outstanding about us and perhaps separate us from the pack? While we can say that we would like to make people from other places come to our region for things like tourism, restaurants, and so forth, although those things add value, we also want them to come for reasons of jobs and commerce and housing and education and so forth. Now, following tonight's workshop, the Regional Planning Committee is hopeful that you will continue to participate in the development of the regional plan, sharing your thoughts and your concerns, communicating the ideas that are important to you, and critiquing our work and identifying the goals that will help define and improve our town and region over the next 10 years and beyond. And with that, I'll turn the presentation back to Sam, and thank you very much for participating tonight.
Great, thank you, Frank. So for a couple of housekeeping items, first, we had asked everyone to sign in the chat box that you can see on the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little chat icon. Click in there, sign in your name, And if you please include your email address, we can make sure that you get invitations to future workshops and get notified of future milestones along this project. You know, some of you, we do have your email address, but please, if you don't think we do, please give it to us so we can include you. Let's go to the next slide. The project. As with the first workshop last week, we're going to begin with a little background. This information will not be new to many of you who joined us in the previous workshop, but for those who are new and joining us for the first time, welcome. We are here this evening because RiverCOG, the Regional Planning Committee, the RPC, and our consultant, Fitzgerald and Halliday, are working on the first ever Regional Plan of Conservation Development for the region. The RPC is a visionary policy document that sets goals and makes recommendations regarding preferred land uses, development patterns and types, and desirable areas for conservation based on existing and emerging regional trends and challenges. On June 29th and on July 7th, we held a region-wide introductory presentation and encore performance that offered a primer on RiverCOG and the RPC and the Regional Plan of Conservation and Development. We then spent the summer virtually visiting each of the 17 towns in our region, gathering input on the issues and goals of each town and learning how they see their town's role in the region. All of these meetings are available to view on the project website, rivercogregionalplan.org. Throughout this time, we have also been working on creating an existing conditions report, which compiles statistical data on current trends and key issues in the region. This document is in the process of being finalized and will be attached to the regional plan as an appendix. With the information that we've gathered so far, we began a series of 4 regional thematic meetings or virtual workshops, the first of which was held last Wednesday on December 9th. There, we presented data on demographic issues and trends from the existing conditions report and heard your thoughts on addressing those issues and trends in the region. You can watch a video of that workshop, particularly, I think right now we have the Breakout Room 2 video that's currently on our website if you'd like to view it or share that with anyone else in your community who might be interested. This workshop is going to be recorded as well and posted later this evening. But in tonight's workshop, which is number 2, we will focus on the responses we received to the visioning questions we asked at our municipal meetings with the 17 planning and zoning commissions. And we will ask for your help in crafting a vision statement and key themes based on those responses. So with that, the agenda. We will move on to the second part of the workshop, which will focus on developing key themes for the Rpocd, which we will explain a little bit about what we mean by themes and provide examples. Then we will break out into groups again. Each group will work to generate a list of potential themes that can build to our regional vision. After 20 minutes in the breakout groups, we will reconvene and again report on our findings. We will conclude this workshop with an overview of where we are in the process, ways you can get involved, next steps. At this point, I will pass it over to our senior planner, Megan Juflis. Megan, take it over.
Sorry, it's tough running 2 screens. So thanks, Sam. I guess first things first, if we're going to spend the first portion of this meeting discussing a regional vision and trying to come up with a vision statement, it's important that we first explain what we mean by vision. That is, what is it that we're trying to capture here? So in terms of a community or regional planning document like the Rpocd, a vision statement really refers to an aspirational description of our community. So it's forward-looking. Where is it that we want to go, and what is it that we want to look like or be as a region? The vision statement really forms the basis for everything else in the Rpocd. All of the goals and recommendations in that document will be aimed at taking incremental steps towards achieving our overall vision. So when thinking about the vision statement, what we're really asking ourselves is, what makes or will make the region a place where people want to live and work, a place where businesses want to locate, and a place that people want to visit? So this isn't the first time that we've brought up the regional vision in our public outreach efforts. When we visited the 17 towns for the municipal meetings over the summer, the first question that we asked is, what is your vision for the Lower Connecticut River Valley? The idea with this workshop is to share what we learned from those meetings and build upon it. So from those meetings, we heard that the vision for the region should focus on agritourism, historic character, a lifestyle economy, connectivity, ecotourism, natural environment, diversity of businesses, diversity, shoreline tourism, arts and culture, and the river and waterfront. These concepts sometimes were mentioned in terms of things that we have already and things that we should protect, such as the natural environment or the Connecticut River. Other things were mentioned in terms of things that we should improve upon or have more of, for example, connectivity and ecotourism. But the thing that unites them all together is that they were all identified as important to the future vision of our region, or where it is that we need to go. Interestingly, though maybe not surprisingly, we found that certain concepts were repeatedly mentioned over and over across all of the municipal meetings. So we're showing those here in this chart. Natural environment and ecotourism, as well as the river or waterfront, came up in 13 of the 17 towns. Historic character and or arts and culture came up in 9 of 17 towns. Connectivity came up in 16 of 17 towns. And tourism was mentioned, whether shoreline, eco, agro, or just in general, in 11 of 17 towns. And so this chart that we're showing here represents how these elements, which were widely mentioned by the towns across the region, comprise the pieces of one unified vision. And this is consistent also with what we found when we looked at the POCDs for each of the towns. So you'll see the towns listed across the top of this chart and some goal topics listed down the left-hand side. What we did was we looked through each of the plans for our towns and we put an X in the box where a town had a goal or a policy related to a specific topic. We're not going to go through this in detail. It is available on the website if you want to look at it, and it will be part of the planning document. But what you'll notice is that most of the boxes here are entirely filled with X's. And you may also notice with our lovely color-coded headings here that the goals relate to the elements that we heard at the municipal meetings, which we showed on the previous slide. So we distilled what we read in the plans to showcase the unity in these particular goals. So we have natural environment, historic and cultural resources. Here we have economic development, which we've distilled to specifically look at tourism and recreation because that's what we heard at the meetings. And then circulation, which is largely related to the idea of connectivity. So walkability, wayfinding, bicycle connections, etc. Now, despite these consistencies, we also recognize that each town is different. No town has everything and every town has something. So really it's only together that we can realize the overall vision. So the second question that we asked at the municipal meetings was, what do you see as your town's role in the region? I'm going to run through these rather quickly, but just kind of to give you an idea of what we heard. Old Saybrook identified itself as a commercial business hub and the gateway from the south. Durham and Middlefield referenced agriculture and suburban housing. Middletown identified as the economic center, destination for business, shopping, and dining. Haddam called itself an eco center. Clinton was a hub or gateway and provides shoreline access. Westbrook also mentioned shoreline access and restaurants. Lyme noted the natural environment, agriculture, and also considered itself a place to get away. Old Lyme, again, we're looking at shoreline, waterfront access, economic diversity, shopping, and services. Essex mentioned historic character. Deep River called itself the mid-region hub and also referenced its historic character. Chester talked about arts and culture. Killingworth mentioned culture and the natural environment. East Hampton talked about recreation and called itself a commercial hub and a gateway to the East. Portland was a recreation hub and also suburban. Cromwell was a retail center and commercial hub, and East Haddam talked about recreation and agriculture. So as you can see, each town identified itself as having a specific role in the region. And based on these responses, we distilled the information that we heard from the towns, and we came up with these groupings. So you can see our business commercial centers, our historic and cultural center, our eco center, and our agricultural center. And you can see from the map that some clear trends started to emerge based on regional geography. We have eco centers to the east, farms to the west, a bustling shoreline to the south, a commercial hub to the north, and a historic central core. Now, we know that each town has and will continue to have multiple priorities and elements of each of these groups. But these are just the roles that we heard from the towns that they wanted to play in the greater regional vision. So now we need to take these responses that we've heard and these identities and try to consolidate that into one global vision statement. What will our region be? And so with that, I suppose it's time to enter into our first breakout session, where we will be asking you to give us your best elevator pitch based on what you've heard on what is our vision statement.
Okay, I think we have enough right now of 27 participants. We'll probably break into 2 breakout sessions. And I'll lead one, and I think Francisco will lead the second. So Eliza, please make it so.
Yes, give me one moment, everyone.
Please accept the request to join the breakout room.
Well known in the region.
Oh, well, thank you, Mary. Yeah, I'm sorry to bring that into the general session, but it was too interesting to not complete. And so, all right, Megan is going to bring us back to the general discussion.
Thanks, Sam. So actually, I'm about to give it back to you because I'd love to hear what happened in the breakout group. So why don't you go first in a summary?
All right. So our first bullet was and this came up a couple times, is that electronic or data connectivity allows home occupations to be tied in and supports an innovative population that needs that connectivity. You tie that in with things that probably are outside of our control, whether it be the competitive nature of the state with taxes and regulation. That could be a real success for us for a vision for the region. One thing that we had discussion about the difference between culture and community, how culture is an experience, and that's more of an external for like tourism, whereas community is what we should be emphasizing. A sense of community is a strength. It feels like home. And I think it was best summarized by one of our participants saying, we have the community you want to live in. And also talking about how increasingly diversity and people of different backgrounds, cross-cultural, is adding to that strength and sense of community. One of our new regional residents talked about moving here and how we are the not cold version of New England, because New England has has a bad reputation of being a socially cold place. And then also, also vision the interest in stewardship of natural lands as being a draw for people and for ecotourism. I think another series of descriptors that we came up with is live, work, learn, play, or another concept of this idea of what is our plaid, and each of those colors representing something like green being nature, blue commerce, and other colors, and what does that sort of unique plaid of colors and it could be variations across the region mean, and what does that look like for us? We end up going on to a second slide. You talked about gateway to that we're on the doorstep of a very large region, only a couple hours away from New York and Boston, and a day's drive of Canada. That there's also, and then this is where we tied in with the trade port, with foreign companies not needing to pay tariffs if they bring in raw materials through Bradley International. And then we also, I think, vision, jobs, innovation, education, and a skilled workforce. So that really gets to some of the human capital we have for our economies. So those were what was discussed in our group.
It's really interesting. I like the plaid. That's creative.
Yeah.
I can say, because I was in Francisco's group, that we heard a lot of similar things, but I'll let Francisco do the summary there.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Yeah, we had a very similar conversation, and we were kind of a little all over the place, but towards the end, it really came together, and that started with the river. It really all starts with the river. And so Patrick brought up a really interesting idea. He sees not only the history in the river, but potential in the river to use the river for the same role it initially served in economic development, and that's for low-head hydropower potential. And so that idea of the river as itself as an economic development tool for maybe small-scale industry that's tied to restoring historic resources like mill buildings is a central idea. So we want to be able to work that into the vision for the region. And it does make sense that the river is obviously central to the region, geographically and its history, but it should be in its future as well. Next is the towns need to work collaboratively. So the vision needs to be for the towns working together to address issues such as population loss and to attract people to the region. And then this idea that it's a tremendous experiment right now that we're all living in, which is live where you work, right? And live where you want, because you can work where you live, should be part of the region's identity or vision as a way of attracting people to the region who now maybe can live anywhere to work for a company that's in New York or Boston or wherever. And part of that is promoting the region's high quality of life, but somehow figuring out how to spin that into the cool factor, or at least promote the cool factor of the region, which is, synonymous with attracting younger people. And then, and we had 2 slides too. And then another part of the vision is that everything is connected, and connected by the river, by roads, by bike trails. Our historic centers are connected, the shore. And over all of this is the idea that we have it all, and that the region is everything that is New England, and people can find a little bit of everything in the region. And we also talked about some needs that we need to somehow figure out how to address in the vision statement. And that's the need to diversify as a community and as a region, and to address needs such as affordable housing. But transcending all this was the idea that we have it all and the region has a high quality of life. And that's about it.
Francesco, I would say that that kind of aligns very closely to what the breakout group one had with its kind of concept of, you know, this area being where you'd like to live.
Yeah.
And I also saw we had a hand raised. Beth Emery, did you have a question or a comment?
I had a comment. That in our breakout group, I understand the term, the community you want to live in, but I think it's important that we recognize that that needs qualifiers, because some people want to live in, quote, a certain kind of community. And we are a very, very white community. We don't have, Middletown has a lot of diversity, but the rest of the region, when you look at the numbers, doesn't. And so I think when we talk about the community that you want to live in, we have to make absolutely clear and really highlight that we're looking for diversity. I think that that's going to, and the affordable housing is going to be part of that. There's a lot of things that'll be part of that. But yeah, we shouldn't say the community you want to live in without a really good qualifier. And the second thing I want to mention, I heard bike trails come up a couple different times, and there are bike trails, but currently there's not a lot of connectivity on what you would call the multi-purpose bike trails, the off-road bike trails. So certainly you can do road cycling and do a lot of nice road cycling, but that's not a bike trail. That's going to be a bike route. And so we need to qualify what we mean by bike trails, and maybe everybody means something a little bit different, but we don't really have bike trails that are interconnecting at this point at all throughout the region. So I just want to make those two comments. Thanks.
Really good points. Thank you.
So this is Nick. Some of the comments on qualifying things also lead to the fact that when we were talking about demographics earlier and our future branding and vision, it's a vision, right? It's not necessarily what we have now. So the conversation, for example, on connectivity and bike trails is trying to create that vision also. By projecting a vision, you also have to create it. And you have to be careful when you qualify things too much, because then it's not a vision anymore. It's a statement, right? So what we're trying to portray and project is something we can aspire to. So bike trails is a big thing, because there are several bike trails throughout not just our region, but going north. And those are the kind of things that we can promote, because we have the type of diversity in our land use that we can promote those bike trails to become that connectivity, so that you can do these things, bike to a historic district in another part of the region. So that was kind of the visioning portion of it. So I'm just offering a cautionary statement that if you qualify too much, then it's not a vision anymore, right?
Absolutely. So being clear about what we have versus where we want to go.
Correct.
If I may chime in next on that, and I apologize, I have to leave very shortly after for a 7 o'clock meeting. But if we want to play up the part where a community you want to live in, I think another approach to that would be to be a part of a community, or a community you want to be a part of, as opposed to live in. Because then as the community shapes and changes, it can shape and change to be more inclusive and attract more people.
I like that, because it's welcoming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and,
my 2 cents.
And both groups, both groups talked about the fact that yes, we have the river and the shore, but we have so many things. We have the historic sections, we have the agricultural, we have all these different things that, even though they are individual great things. I think if you put them all together, then it shows a diversity of the community and things to do and lifestyle. The one thing I don't think I heard much of was jobs, though.
Yeah, and I think that's a good observation, because we, the people who don't have the jobs, that aren't here yet aren't here, so they're not speaking. So and that's one of the key drivers of growth, particularly for younger residents, is the availability of work here. I think when we discussed some of the transition over to remote work, that will allow more people to work here and bring their jobs with them in an unprecedented way. But ultimately, we also need people. We need people, businesses that provide jobs as well.
Well, I mean, I brought up the small businesses very much in that context, because I don't think our region is going to ever be strong in terms of large employers, in terms of the Aetnas and even Middlesex Hospital, which is a large employer, is almost, I'll say, an exception. But I think the region does have and ought to pursue a potential for small businesses, and that's what you need to make possible in this region. And I would, since I would also second Mary's point that we should not confuse what is with what we want. Not only are we looking for diversity in terms of race or whatever, or background, but also age. I mean, this region needs desperately more diversity of age groups. And so we have to think of things that attract those diversities. And I think young people need to have the ability to do their own thing these days.
So isn't using that vision statement that we have all these wonderful New England-like things and this multitude of historic and shore, and isn't that the hook that we would use to attract a small business? Isn't that vision statement to say, look at all the wonderful things you can do in our region? It's all connected. These are all the things with all the different people's comments saying, you know, how do we bring these things here? And the connectivity that you mentioned with you know, the internet and all. Isn't that the hook? That's what you're branding, you're visioning, is to make a statement that says, hey, I'd like to live here. Isn't that what we're trying to do, right? And that'll include diversity in small business as well, right? That's why you want to come and live here, because we have all these things, right?
I think you're correct. And I think one of the issues that has kind of separated employers is this idea of playing to the stock market. So the larger a corporation is, the more they are beholden to their shareholders. And once they're beholden to shareholders, their choices are no longer based on quality of life. Their choices are based on bottom line. They're chasing yield. They're looking for return on their share price. I think we're more geared towards those small employers, family businesses, because their focus is really keeping employees, keeping their skills, and making sure those employees are happy. So I think the sense of we're never going to be attractive to big employers is absolutely correct. This region of the country is too expensive for companies that are focused strictly on the bottom line to ever invest long-term.
This is one other thing I'd like to point out. Remember, this is a vision statement for the future, right? This plan is forward-looking. And so when we talk about the difference between what we have and what we want to be, the vision statement and possibly the branding, because it almost seems like we're crossing the line between the vision statement and the branding, but both of those should be forward-looking.
Toward Frank's, this is Jean, toward Frank's thought, if it's the visioning, and I'm focusing in a lot of the things that people said, but the diversity aspect, we've been doing a lot of, through my work, a lot of training and a lot of work. I don't know if some of you remember Rosa, who used to be on an economic development commission for the region. But in talking to her, she's a part of our board. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I think a way of positively focusing on that for the vision for the region is to say that that we are actively creating a landscape, a welcoming landscape for diversity, something that's positive. And then of course you have to do the work, but in the vision statement itself, you can say we are creating a landscape for et cetera, when it comes to, you know, cultural and economic, et cetera, diversity.
And we do have a long history of diversity. I mean, you think about the New Haven area, particularly Hartford area, but, you know, Yale, these places have brought people from all over the world to this area, not necessarily the RiverCOG region, but Connecticut as a whole. So there is a lot of influx of different cultures, and this area, I think, has been welcoming to that and really accustomed to that as well. It's not something that's unusual, because of the fact that we've got this long history with schools like Yale and Wesleyan that really actually actively look for people that come from different backgrounds.
Frank, right now there's a position open at Wesleyan. They are looking for a coordinator for someone who can work with students from China and India specifically, bringing in graduate and postgraduate students from those two areas. So if they're successful in what they want, I think we're going to see sort of that new migration of these two cultures coming in and becoming part of our community.
Well, good point. I think Jean just left. I was going to respond to her comment. I like this idea of landscape because it's a landscape that has a place for people. It has opportunities for jobs for people. It has a place for housing for people. So I do like this idea of landscape and having that used somehow, because also, you know, landscape is also our natural environment too. Is our natural resources. So I do like that in that.
A landscape for living.
Yeah. And then you have the human landscape of community, which also is welcoming, and it's something that we want, that not only the people who are already here want to be a part of. It's welcoming to new people who may want to be a part of it.
I would caution against using the word landscape. I love the word landscape. I use it all the time. But I think all of us, most of us that are on this call are in professions that use that. And I think that I think it's a word that is not commonly used throughout, you know, our communities, the way that we think of it. And so I might caution against that word.
Is it too jargony? Too much jargon?
Yeah, that. I think we fully understand what that word landscape means, but I think a lot of people might not fully understand what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, do we want to move on with the presentation? But thank you everyone for this. This was a good discussion, and I'm glad that we were able to accommodate it with this size group. So go ahead, Megan.
Great. I'm actually going to give the presentation over to Francisco.
Actually, Megan, because I only have a couple slides, if we could just stay on with your screen and I'll just tell you when to flip. How's that?
No problem.
Okay.
So we'll continue back.
Okay. So next we're going to talk about themes in planning. And we've touched upon a lot of these themes already in our discussion about the vision for the region. Excuse me. But themes summarize the core values and aspirations for any community. And they are ideas that really put together, they contribute towards the vision statement. And the vision statement doesn't have to capture all of them. Typically, themes are something that you don't start out from the beginning of a planning process such as this and say, these are going to be our themes and we're going to make sure everything fits into them. Rather, you go on a process of discovery And themes kind of emerge through that process. And I would say we're more than halfway through this process now. And we're at the point where themes are starting to emerge. And we want to talk about those and call those out. And we would like to identify 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be, themes. And we're going to use those themes to build our future land use map, which our meeting next week, that'll be the focus of our meeting then. So with that said, and we're ready for the next slide. And so let me give you some examples on how themes are used. The statewide plan uses something very similar to themes. They're called principles in Connecticut's Plan of Conservation and Development. And there are, in this case, there's 7 or 8 of them. And these are consistent throughout the document. So this is a little different than like subject or topic areas. The topic area might be economic development, transportation, housing. This covers them, but it blends it a little more. So like integrated planning and investment is a principle or a theme that you could weave throughout the plan, and as well as redeveloping infrastructure and mixed use development, right? That has implications for housing and economic development and placemaking. So that's how the state's done it. And if we go to the next example of another region, and that being the capital region, and no one I know knows why that's spelled with an O and not an A, but the CROG, we call it, and up in the Hartford area where I live, and that theme, and Megan, if you just click one more time, there it is. That theme is vibrant, green, connected, competitive. So right away, it's conveying like the 4 most important ideas that transcend the plan. And we can very quickly intuit or read into it that vibrant is about a place that is growing in population and has a young population, and there's a lot of cultural activity. And green is a place that has incredible natural resources or parks. And connected is everything from internet connectivity to roads and highways and bike lanes and communities that are well connected. And competitive suggests economic development, but also maybe cultural development and arts and being competitive as a region in that. And so I think what they do here is very similar to our vision for how we might use ideas as themes and words to convey a lot of messages. And if we drill down just a little bit more to a town and how towns can use themes, this is a plan I did in Woodbury, which of course not in the RiverCOG region, it's out near Waterbury. Somewhere near the end of our planning process, these themes just emerged. We just kept coming back to these central ideas. And in Woodbury's case, it was attract and retain residents, excel in stewardship, and diversify the economy. And it was really 3 ideas. That's all we needed to summarize everything it was that we wanted to achieve. And of course, the plan is broken down into goals and strategies and action items, but these are the big ideas. And so what we would like to do with you is to talk about some big ideas, some potential themes, and really just brainstorm just like we did in the past session. So with that said, I think we're now ready to go to our breakouts, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we were having a really interesting conversation about the intersection between these themes and words and branding, and how, you know, these building block themes and words really, you know, sort of come together in like sort of a, you know, how you brand a place and stuff. So yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah. All right. So I guess it's report out time. So I'll report out of what we discussed in my group. So we discussed a real change in attitude from ownership and really coveting what other people have to land, ownership of land to stewardship, to going from ownership to stewardship, and what that really means, and how that's long term, and how stewardship means nurturing, and that idea of nurturing a place and things and community. We also talked about themes as adaptation, evolving, resiliency, preservation, but also themes. In many ways, we were discussing about how, you know, using the capital region themes and talking about how we were similar or different than that, and how we're a multi-centric region, we're the green space and the megalopolis. When you look at you know, a satellite photo at night, you know, we're the dark area between parts of the megalopolis. Although I rather use green than black. Going back to sense of community, warmth and caring. Another defining theme is volunteerism in our region. Resiliency as a region. We have thoughtful and intelligent responses to challenges. We have resilient people, businesses, and development. We brought the word the word adaptable or agile. And then also this idea of community being the theme, a community that fills needs, that examples that poverty, we feel that poverty is dealt with better here, that there's volunteerism, that nature and natural is a theme. We talked about not stagnant or not static with change, and that things are not totally new. We're holding on to some of that heritage, but and we also talked a little bit about the theme of exploration and how that could be a play on sort of branding of, you know, tourism, of coming here to explore, but also exploring that we're supportive of innovation. And then we ended it with a discussion about, you know, some fun wordplay that we could have in branding, like, you know, nature and nurture, and how in you know, how in Portland they use get out as, like, you know, to promote their parks and trails, and how you can have fun with some of these themes in sort of creating a pithy sort of brand. And that was
a good cocktail, and we have it all.
Oh yeah. You know what happens off screen on Zoom. Anyway, so Francisco, why don't you report your discussion?
Yeah, once again, it all sounds very familiar. We started out with the idea of connectivity, and we discussed the green and blue wave plan that was done, and how that concept is really applicable throughout the region. And so we bounced around this idea of connectivity, and you know, not wanting to be unoriginal. I think connectedness or connected is one of CROG's themes, but it seems perfectly relevant here as well. So interconnectedness and both transportation and open space being connected and overlapping. And then we kind of stumbled upon a word that I really liked, or it was offered up, exploration. Right, the region's a great place to explore, and so I really like that. I underline that. And then it's a very warm and welcoming place. So there's this character or quality that we were trying to get at that included like quaint and warm and welcoming and exciting. So there's something warm and fuzzy there that we want to try to pin down or capture. And then the idea of community, both physical in the places, but also, you know, emotional and personal in people and relationships. And then another great word is innovation, right? You have a history of innovation in the region, and you have innovation now, and you definitely want innovation to be central to your future. So that came out very quickly and on top. And then we talked about culture as part of the identity, the importance of inclusiveness and diversity as an important idea. And then finally, the outdoors, and as you mentioned with the Portland idea, it's exactly that. You know, get out, the outdoors, the river and sound and recreation and things being accessible, all as an idea. So that, in a nutshell, that was it. This was hard to capture these big ideas in words.
Oh,
it's interesting that you used the same word that we kind of came up with too, and it just seemed like it was a very kind of offbeat word, but explore came up in both groups.
Yeah, and I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I promise I was not coordinating with Francisco. So.
No, it emerged. I didn't plant that seed. I forget who offered it up, but it emerged. Yeah, Cindy, thanks. And then Haley gave it a vote of confidence. So.
One word comes to mind: opportunity, which we really haven't dealt with. Because we're really talking about an opportunity for growth in the most personal sense and in a social sense.
So we have really great words that we came up here for that will provide, I think, a very robust list of words for us to use in crafting themes. And I'd like to just take a moment to sort of take on what Frank sort of said in the beginning of this meeting about the idea of brand and how we can start taking some of these words that we've come up with, which actually the convergence between the two to the breakout groups is quite amazing. How can we start thinking about brand using some of these words? And you know, I don't know if we're not going to walk out tonight with a brand for our region, but I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
So Sam, I think one of the reoccurring themes, regardless of what meeting room you were in or which part of this tonight's meeting we went through, we heard the word repeatedly about the word community, and I think that is probably at the forefront of who we see ourselves as, our face, so to speak. The other thing we saw and we heard, I think no matter what room you were in, you probably heard something to do with nature, the environment, green. I think we also heard in different areas, different ways to describe this, but innovation or change and resiliency, those kinds of themes.
I think that's great. Yeah, and innovation, change, adaptation, evolution. Yeah.
And I think we heard the word explore in the last in both of the groups.
Yeah,
somehow arrived at that word, which is kind of a unique word, but I think it seems to fit.
How about we are a naturally innovative, nurturing community.
Yeah,
it's not bad, Margo.
Say that again, Margo. I'll type it up.
We are a naturally innovative, nurturing community.
Yeah, I think we have the building blocks here of some really, so I think a good vision, some good themes, and potentially some good ideas for a good brands for us. So this is exciting.
You can take economic development.
Say that again, Alan?
What's missing is like crowdfunding of economic innovation and things like that.
Yeah, yes.
Because it's community funding.
Well, and community funding in like the most general sense of like, we want people.
It's investment. It's
investment.
It's a community investing in itself.
Yeah, I think the word investment is a word that we didn't use yet, and I like that word investment because when entrepreneurs start a business, they're investing in the community, they're investing in employees, they're investing in property, and they're investing.
And in hearing all of this, I just keep coming back to, you don't have to settle and you don't have to choose. Where when people are choosing where to live or where to work, there's always something that, you know, they throw out a choice because the work-life balance isn't good or the housing options aren't good. You don't have to settle here. You can have everything you want. You can have the outdoors, you can have good employment opportunities, you can have a great sense of community, good schools, great housing, great access. And so I think there's something there that we have everything, but the small town feel at the same time.
Yeah, it really is a desirable place to live.
Right. But working in the concept. Go ahead, Alan.
If you start with these human values, really, a certain set of human values, it calls for really innovative policy recommendations. This has a tilt to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great. And
I just offer if you're putting these together, you think about some type of a rhythm or a flow, you know, with community evolving, exploring, and a sense of, you know, neighbor or whatever it is. The theme from word to word should kind of be interconnected, even though they're different, and kind of flow from a community to an exploring to an evolving to opportunities, things like that. So that you're kind of telling a story with single words that kind of link together, even though they're different.
I'd like to also suggest that instead of just having adjectives or the way the Hartford one, you could also just have the adjectives followed by the word community, so that you get that word in as a noun, and then you can attach to it before any of the adjectives you want to.
Like a natural community, an innovative community,
well, you can string the adjectives, natural, innovative, and whatever.
As far as you want to go.
Yeah.
But I really like the idea of investment, and in how, you know, there's a investment in volunteerism and in the community. There's investment, and we want a place where people will invest their money, of course, but we also want a place where people will be invested.
Right. There's a. I was going to say there's
very interesting.
There. You can call it an invested community. That means that we are, you know, we put ourselves into it, not just money, but in other resources.
Go ahead, Alan.
I lost my train of thought.
I'm sure you'll regain it.
I know what it was. I know what it was.
I like the idea of invested in community.
Yeah. This is a social plan, by the way.
Well, yeah, because
it's not only a social plan though. It also seems like this has to do with
it's comprehensive.
Right.
I mean, in that sense.
Yep.
We need to turn it over to Thomas Jefferson.
No. There's a group there. There's a group of MIT guys call themselves the New Alchemists. And they've fooled around with all these things for years, for 30 years.
I mean, to take all the words that we've put on the wall and turn it into a fluid document.
Well, so I'm going to let's see. I'm going to move on to back to the presentation. So I'm going to go back to Megan. I've been taking notes throughout this whole conversation, and if we have a few moments after we're done, we can continue this conversation, but I want to be respectful of the fact that we told people 2 hours. So we'll wrap this up, and then we can go back to conversation for people who want to stay.
So this brings us back to another refresher for those of you who are at the first workshop. So bear with me if this is redundant, but here you can see a breakdown of our anticipated timeline.
You're going to want to go back to that slide. You're not in that slide.
Oh, am I? Sorry, it's showing on my screen.
Yeah, we're seeing workshop 2, the title slide.
Okay, you're all the way at the beginning. I'm sorry.
There we are.
That's interesting. I'm gonna go presentation view. I have 2 screens up and one screen is showing it and the other screen is not.
We have it now.
Okay. Technical glitch resolved. Okay. So now you should be seeing a breakdown of our anticipated timeline for the creation of the Rpocd. We kicked off the project in winter of 2019 and we anticipate completion in spring of 2021, which is right around the corner. So we're currently in phase 4 of this process at the regional thematic meetings, which you'll see in the 4th column, first line. Following these meetings, the last one of which will be January 5th, we'll be posting the draft Rpocd for public comment. So please check the website at RiverCOGregionalplan.org for access to the draft document and to provide your thoughts and comments. And going forward, there are still several ways you can get involved, including visiting that project website, again, RiverCOGregionalplan.org. Make sure you go to sleep dreaming about this website address. If you go to the website, you can sign up for email notifications. You can view all of the presentations that we've done, including this one, which we'll be posting. And you can share these presentations with others in your community. And most importantly, please join us at the upcoming workshops that are still remaining.
So I'll take over from here. Many of the Regional Planning Committee members are on the Zoom call. But as always, if your town has some vacancies, I'm looking at you, Middlefield, please come, contact us, contact your first selectman, and we'll see about getting you appointed to fill those vacancies. Your Regional Planning Committee members are your liaisons to this process. They're the steering committee for this document, and they're guiding the recommendations that are going in it. So it's very important that that we use our members and as those liaisons, and making sure that every community is heard and represented in this process. Next slide. And very quickly, here is the list of email addresses for all the RPC members for each of the towns. So please write them down, use them. This PowerPoint is actually posted to RiverCOG regionalplan.org. So if you go to the link for meeting recordings and documents, you'll find all this information on that website, and also this presentation. So, and once this Zoom is completed, I will be uploading the video to the website. So, all right, next slide. And just as a reminder to everyone, we're really on a roll with our workshops. Our next workshop is going to be next week on December 21st, and it's going to be the first part of a 2-parter on our regional future land use map. We envision, instead of a longer workshop of 2 hours, that we'll have 2 1-hour workshops. And at the first one, we'll have an assignment for people, and we'll have a discussion about that. And then we'll reconvene in the new year to work on this draft. So I want to thank you again for everyone attending tonight and your participation. The comments and discussion was excellent. You gave us wonderful feedback on vision, themes, and brand, and really all the key words and concepts that we need to make sure are touched upon in our draft plan. So I want to thank you, and I think that's it for the presentation. If anyone wants to continue a conversation, I think we have a few minutes that we can do that. Otherwise, I want to thank you for being here, and we'll hopefully see you next week. And please share the information about these workshops widely in your communities. the flyers posted to the RiverCOG website and also the project website. We can send that out to everyone who gives us their email address in the chat box. So if you have not given us a contact email, please do. And if you know people who you would have liked to have attended or you thought might be interested in contributing, the recording will be posted on our website, and you can contact me or Megan or Francisco, and we can take that information and make sure that your ideas get consideration in the draft plan. So, so with that, I'll just open it up for any last comments or thoughts from anyone on the Zoom. All right. Well, with that, I just want to thank everyone. Sorry, Bruce, that we'll miss you on the 21st. But please, take a look at that recording once it's posted later that evening. And for anyone who didn't make it to last week's demographic change presentation, please take a look at that recording on our website. It's very interesting information and discussion, and it's not too late for you to get your comments into us. So with that, if no other comments, I think we can adjourn for the evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and
have a good night.